Hello, this is Daniel Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. And while the title seems strange since we've just finished our first iterations of Jumptown 2, one of my key rules for creating this channel was to never complain about anything without also talking about how to do it better. So the logical title for this video is indeed Jumptown 3. Should it be created at all? And what should happen first? And what should be changed about it? And to be clear, by Jumptown 3 I mean a major rework. Not the inevitable rerunning of the current Jumptown, which despite any flaws is worth additional playtime until the prerequisites for a major rework are in place. But first of all, was Jumptown 2 a success? For those who were looking for the return of the crazy King of the Hill kind of PvP gameplay that they fondly remembered from the original Jumptown, I guess so. For those who wanted something occupied to finally bomb with their A2, then I guess so. For those who thought it would be a good in-game test of ground versus air battles, and things like tanks, anti-aircraft weapons, the armored personnel carriers, specialized dropships like the Cutlass Steel, etc., I would have to say it was a disappointment. I did not really see much use of any of those in the event. It seemed like a good event for the small org that could take and hold the location for extended duration, and even a small org was likely to be able to hold the event for a server for hours, since anybody else with an org, unless they specifically wanted to fight in a battle with you, would just find their own server to dominate. And if you were an individual without a long time to spend in the game, you were likely just server hopping until you found a cooperative server or did something else, which was also the case with Jumptown 1. If it was held by jerks, you would just server hop to something else. Even then, there were plenty of servers to rotate around. A gameplay loop that happened in Jumptown 1 of a group holding a base and then basically charging folks for access right to it didn't really happen here that I saw. If anybody dominated a base, they wanted to take all the chips, boxes, for themselves. I think that this had to do with the truly unlimited availability at JT1 and the relatively small capacities of the cargo ships at the time. If your thing was shooting people carrying boxes or bombing parked ships, then I guess it was fun, but honestly, with the occasional exception, the battles were mostly ganking than challenging. But at the biggest picture level, what I will say is this, that when it was profitable, it wasn't interesting. And when it was interesting, it usually was at the expense of profitability. Even among takeovers that had both, it was usually divided between the interesting times and the boring, profitable times. And the boring but profitable times were epitomized by the Conga Line, which took various forms. But from an economist standpoint, the Conga Line was the wisest gameplay, because actual rational individuals acting in their maximizing self-interest would choose it. Every 30 seconds or so, the game would add about 20,000 AUEC of economic opportunity to the world by opening the door to the machine. And about 10 seconds later, the door would close and that economic opportunity would be lost forever. So any activity that distracted players enough so that the door would close on a bale of drugs carried the opportunity cost of losing that bale of drugs. If you've never understood the concept of opportunity cost, just think of the cost while you were doing something else, the door was closing on a 20,000 credit bale. So, the Conga Line, boring as it was an economic ideal since it practically guaranteed that there would be someone to get the package before the door closed. Total economic opportunity was maximized. It was also personnel efficient since somebody with just a few minutes could participate for just a few minutes, while someone with hours could spend hours. Someone with just a Pisces could collect hundreds of thousands of credits worth of boxes, as could someone with an Avenger, which was also popular as a ship. Someone bringing in a much more expensive ship was not advantaged in the Conga Line. Neither was a newbie with little experience or someone in just a flight suit. And this is why the PvP community reacted to the development of Conga Lines with such virulent hostility. It insulted everything about their game style. The whole notion of player versus player is to establish that one player is indeed superior to another, be it because they have a better ship, or better equipment, or better skills, or more hardcore commitment. But in the Conga Line, neither ship, equipment, skills, or commitment mattered. It was a hippie socialist paradise right in the middle of what they felt had been promised to be a survival of the fittest battle royale. A newbie in a free flight suit and a Pisces was on the same standing as a veteran in heavy armor and a $200 ship. And yet, honestly, it did produce the most money per hour with the least risk and the most efficiency. But even once a group with one Jumptown for themselves, actually capitalizing on it really pretty much meant hours of something pretty much like a Conga Line. So even when PvP groups were in control, they pretty much lied about it, how they were in control, and said things were safe because they were just desperate for something to fight. So whether it was a Conga Line or King of the Hill Battle Royale, when it was interesting, it wasn't profitable, and when it was profitable, it wasn't interesting. There was also something completely illogical about the premise of the event. Why did they make an automated process that requires you to pull each item out of the machine and then not have anybody there to do that? If in reality the machine just displays the new drugs, let's say for inspection, and then after the door closes sends it to some shipping container, why can't we rip open that container and get it too? So when it comes to do it better, how to do it better. And again, I'm not talking about rerunning the current event with tweaks and balance passes, which I have no objection to their doing, although it won't fix the underlying problem and probably won't result in no more Conga Lines. Well, I would not suggest that they try to create a genuine Jumptown 3 until there are some specific new features added to the game, particularly pyro, server meshing, larger shard sizes, more faction effects including mutually exclusive factions, and the cargo refactor, all of which are current game development goals. Plus, one thing that hasn't been promised but which should be an easy feature to add, faction-specific chat channels per shard. First, pyro. Honestly, this is the kind of event that belongs in Pyro. It feels right there, because logically, why would the individual planets in Stanton put up with these known automated drug labs and just send in a random bunch of volunteers? No, they'd send in the DEA SWAT team and crush it in minutes and then be done with it. Why deal with volunteers to do a pro's job? Pyro, on the other hand, is fought over by competing factions. Jumptown feels more like a situation where one faction is control the drug trade and a competing faction wants to muscle in, and a third faction wants to instead be the one muscling in. Let's call the faction currently in control of the drug trade A, and the two rivals to take it from them, B and C. Obviously, these are enemy factions, and you can only have positive reputation with one of them. And if you don't want a PvP, you wouldn't belong to any of them. The system would take actions to help keep things equal, such as giving more qualification missions to whichever faction has the fewest members on a shard. So, what is needed is more fleshing out of the faction system in Pyro, and to have the current faction player population be the thing that triggers the event. In other words, the event may be active, but is only triggered on a shard when factions B and C are both present on the shard in both sufficient and roughly equal numbers so that there can be a real chance of a real fight between real equal opponents, and not just one org dominating their particular shard. Ho-hum. And a larger shard size, of course, so that there would be a mesh server able to have a fairly decent-sized battle at the site. So, here's my Jumptown 3 scenario. Both factions get the following orders. We, and unfortunately the other guys, have learned of the location of Faction A's secret automated drug lab. Currently, it is at minimal staffing, because minimal staffing means less of a chance of its location becoming known. But that didn't work. It is in A's territory, so we couldn't hold it permanently, but we can sneak in, kill the minimal NPC staff, steal as much as we can, and then bomb it to bits before Faction A learns of it and returns. We can then dominate the market, particularly if we also keep the other guys from stealing enough to be meaningful competitors to us. We've also learned something about the equipment there. It has a turbo mode button with 5 minutes later, after being pressed, greatly increases the production speed for 20 minutes. But be sure that before you press it, you know that you'll be able to hold location from the other guys, because otherwise you'll just be giving more to them. In normal operations, turbo mode isn't used because it wears out the equipment faster, but since we are blowing it up, we don't care. The reward structure of the event is as follows. 1. The standard price for all drugs returned to the faction base, split between all participants. 2. At the end of the event, a bonus if the drug lab is destroyed. It doesn't actually matter by who. 3. At the end of the event, the side that delivered their faction base more drugs than the other gets a big bonus based on the ratio of drugs compared to the other guys delivered. Now, compared to the current version of Jumptown, the doors don't close on individual packages. Rather, the cargo factor allows there to be a number of hull A or B or raft-sized containers that gradually fill one after another. However, the players can pull one SCU-sized containers from them, which I believe is an already planned feature of the cargo refactor. At a secret point in time, with a random component, Faction A will arrive with an overwhelming NPC force, plus whatever players from Faction A want to join in for the fun, and for a particularly large bonus if the destruction of the facility is avoided. As you might guess, the roles rotate. Whoever wins one round becomes the new Faction A for the next round. In addition, there is additional levels of tension that even when immediate combat is not happening, it keeps it from being boring. Do we use the turbo switch mode or not? If we're ahead in the competition, should we just blow up the plant early or press on in the hopes of extending our advantage? Do we blow up the plant on the first indication of Faction A is on their way, or to squeeze out just a few more credits of profit? Who decides, and what happens if the others don't agree? That's why a faction chat channel is needed, although getting consensus among PvP players is never easy. And that's my concept for Jumptown 3. It's a bit more structured event than Jumptown 2, but also more strategically complex, which tends to go together. It definitely will not stabilize into a Conga Line. Is it a perfect PvP setup? No, the perfect PvP structure for a game does not exist, because PvPers are not all the same. Some want highly disciplined PMC organizations battling with military-level discipline. Others want to be on a team, but not constrained. And still others simply want to be mayhem makers. And the mayhem makers might like my proposal the least of the three groups, and I accept that without acrimony. And finally, for an update on our Grow the Channel ship giveaway. As of recording, we are at 43% of the subscriber goal and 24% of the membership goal to release to some lucky player their choice of the Anvil Liberator ship shipping chip for shipping your ships, or the Misk Odyssey long duration exploration carrier. One entry per video, and if the winner is a member as of the day of the winning video, they win both the Liberator and the Odyssey. For non-members, just be a subscriber and comment with the secret word. And the secret word for this video is the kind of paradise that I said the Conga Line represents. Fly safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Daniel Raymond for Ray's Guide.